Hello everybody, more Robb. Guys, today we're going to make something that I haven't had since I was a kid. I haven't had this in decades. What we're going to be making is Boston brown bread, steamed in a can. This one's going to be made in a crock pot. Normally you would make it on top of the stove in a big pot, or maybe even in a pressure cooker. But we're going to be making this in a crock pot. Now if you've never heard of Boston brown bread, it comes in a can made by B&M. I first had it when I was a little kid. My mom would take me with her when she went to the store. Went to Shell City in Miami. That was like the largest grocery store in South Florida. It was like the early Walmart. They had everything. They even had like a barbershop there and a beauty parlor. They sold their own beer. They had a giant section in the back for the produce. Everything was fresh here from the country. They had exotic foods. You could buy conch meat, which is a crustacean marine snail, for like 29 cents a pound. It was like, for a little kid, I think that's where I got my love of food, was going to Shell City with my mom. But she would buy brown bread in a can, which I don't know why. That's sort of like a northern delicacy. You should toast it, have it with cream cheese. For some reason, I started thinking about it just the other day. I went online to see if anybody sold it. Walmart had it for $26 a can. So I went to Publix, they had it for $3 a can. So you know what? How hard can it be to make? So I said, let's try it. I found a very simple recipe online, and that's what we're going to do today. But we're going to be making it in a crock pot. We're going to be cutting their recipe in half, because I'm going to make it in a can I had peaches in that I bought from the dollar store. They're peaches from South Africa. They don't make them anymore that size at the dollar store. I bought a couple cases a couple years ago. I'm down to my last 2 cans. But anyway, the recipe goes like this. You're going to be using different grains. You're going to use wheat, half a cup. Going to use cornmeal, half a cup. And because I didn't have any rye flour, which the recipe called for, I'm going to be using half a cup of oats. Then you're going to use 3/4 teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of baking soda, and the magical ingredient in this recipe is the molasses. I like to buy it from Amazon, get a big gallon of it for like $16. Lasts forever. Going to use 1/4 cup of molasses, which may be too much. I looked at what the color of the regular B&M Boston brown bread is, and it's a lot lighter color. So you could probably get away with much less molasses, but that's what the recipe called for, and that's what I used. I also used 1/4 cup of raisins. The interesting thing about the raisins, I repeated this recipe without the raisins and added some ginger powder. I really couldn't notice the lack of raisins in the second batch, so I just added a tiny bit more sugar. After you add that, you want to grease up your can, and I just use some spray, coconut spray, but you can use lard, margarine, butter, anything you want. And then I noticed in some of the recipes they put a canning lid or something like a trivet in the container where you're going to boil your water to keep the can off the bottom. But since I wasn't using high heat on the stove or in a pressure cooker, I was just using the crock pot. I decided I wasn't going to use that lid from the canning lid. Also, it made it too tall to fit the lid anyway. And then I put it on high for 3 hours. First I had to put some hot water in the bottom of the pot, like 2 cups of hot water. And then I put it on high for 3 hours. But by that time, it was kind of late at night, and I decided just to put on low for the rest of the evening. And in the morning, it looked like this. Now, the recipe didn't call for me to cook it that much longer. It said for just 2.5 to 3 hours. But I cooked it overnight, and the texture was very firm, and it had an interesting flavor. It's a tiny bit of bitterness from the molasses. It gives it a unique flavor for a bread, almost like a licorice aftertaste. And toasted with butter, it's very good. Toasted without anything, it's very good. Like I said, because it has a little bit of a bitter aftertaste, tiny bit, not a lot. Similar to coffee. It goes well with coffee or tea. It has a unique flavor and texture that's unlike any other breads I've made, because I think partly because of the steaming process and the molasses and the different ingredients. Now, there's one warning now. The foil that I put on top, I noticed it had some little holes in it, and I think that maybe because the can is steel and the aluminum is a different metal, and there's moisture and heat going on, maybe there was some sort of galvanic reaction and the aluminum was being corroded. The bread did have a little bit of a tinny taste to it. I didn't eat the top part where it was in contact with aluminum foil. So when I made my next batch, I used some parchment paper. I lined the can with, and I think in the future I'm going to do that. Unless I can find a stainless can or a can that's enamelware or something like that that won't cause any corrosion, I'm going to only make it in something like glass or enamel, something like that. I think it'll be better than the can in the future, although they do sell it in the can. So I would recommend you try this recipe. It has a very unique flavor. It's not like the best thing in the whole wide world, but there's nothing else like it. It's a treat. I enjoy it with the butter toasted, and if you have any cream cheese, it'll step it up a notch. It's extremely simple, and it lends itself to changing the ingredients, because I didn't use the buttermilk. I used regular milk, and I didn't use rye flour. I used oats. So you might want to try it with the original recipe using the rye flour and the buttermilk. See how it comes out for you. So give the Boston brown bread a try, guys. I think you might enjoy it. So this is the recipe for this week. Hope you found it something was interesting, and you all come back. Watch more. Put out new videos every week. Been doing it for 13 years. Got over 840 videos, and put the food videos on Friday, the review stuff on Sunday, and wildcard videos on Wednesday. Whenever I do Wednesday videos, I do whatever I want. All right, guys, take care. Hope you enjoyed the little brown bread video, and you give it a try. Take care and see you out there.